Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Lev Marques Show. This is Lever Ball alongside my co-host and former NFL player, Marcus Ogden. And before we get started, I'd like to just thank our sponsors. That includes a must-win Coach Big L Speaking, Merida Capital, Liberty Home Mortgage, and Family Legacy Financial Solutions. And our guest on this episode is Randall Crowder. And Randall is currently the COO at Phunware Incorporated. And he's also a U.S. Army veteran and West Point alum. And Randall, I want to start out by asking you, with your military background, what did some of the lessons you learned serving? How did some of those lessons help you to develop and make you who you are and help you to succeed in the corporate world in your current role with Phunware?
Yeah, no, great question. And it's funny, we actually talk about this a lot because I think this is something that the U.S. gets very poorly and another country gets very well. And so, just for me, always being, kind of innovation and entrepreneurship has always been my jam. And so I think a lot of people always think, well, wait a minute, how are you, how does the Army translate to entrepreneurship? And I would recommend anybody to read a book called Startup Nation, where it talks about, how military service and just civil service in general has impacted the kind of culture of innovation and entrepreneurship in Israel. And I think that's something that the U.S., some companies get it. What does somebody with military service bring to the table? And I'll actually even expand that. I always say like organized athletics as well. There's just something about shared adversity. There's something about organizational development. And there's something about just leadership that you glean from service through adversity with a bunch of people that are kind of built around camaraderie. And so in the military, especially I think in where we find ourselves today in the military. So, I went over for the first time in '03, in the beginning of the war. And, we had never fought a battle like that before. We had been training for, large, force on force, over massive, pieces of land, tank maneuvers. And all of a sudden you throw a bunch of people who've been trained in that into a city. And they're like, all right, by 9 to 10, you're, a peacemaker. 10 to 11, you're a civil aid worker. 12 to 2, you're kicking down doors, and then you're handing out candy by 4. And like you have to just, quickly modulate between those different personas. And you're doing it in an urban terrain that you were never trained to operate in. So all of the leadership had to be pushed down to the smallest unit. And you had kids who were 18 years old, barely out of high school, leading very critical operations in an area they were not familiar with, in warfare they were not familiar with, and they were told to figure it out. That's running a business. That's a startup. That's doing anything entrepreneurial. You've got to just get thrown into the mix and figure it out. And one of my favorite quotes is a guy named Jimmy Chin. He's a real famous climber and cinematographer. He filmed Free Solo, where a guy climbed El Capitan with no safety gear. And one of his famous quotes is "commit, then figure it out." And it has a certain meaning when it's coming from a mountaineer. Commit and then figure it out is a little scary when you're climbing up a sheer rock cliff. But it's the same thing in business. And, it's the same thing in the military. When you get told to take the hill, you got to commit, and you're gonna have to figure some things out along the way. And so I think going through that shared adversity in a very asymmetric time and doing things that nobody had ever done before. It's made me really appreciate, kind of operating with limited information, but still being able to take decisive action. And so that's always carried with me in business, the old adage, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And I think a lot of times you gotta get going. And I think we learned that in Iraq and Afghanistan. And that's always kind of stayed with me.
No question. I'll pass up to Marcus for the next question. But, one thing you said there about, kind of reading and reacting in different situations. And there are certain situations, when you're serving, when maybe you have to go into combat. But you mentioned also there are situations when you had to be a peacemaker. And that reminds me a little bit of back in the day, I was a door guy at a bar for a little bit. And don't get me wrong, dealing with drunk idiots is nowhere near as intense as, going into combat. But so certainly not trying to compare the two experiences. But when you mentioned about being a peacemaker, like as a door guy, there are situations where you need to be assertive, but there are also situations when you need to de-escalate and keep your cool.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest part for me, wasn't being assertive, but like in certain situations, not snapping when, you tell someone they need to go home and they tell you you're a loser and they make a joke about how they hooked up with your mom, and you just have to restrain yourself and not pop them in the face. And so that that translates into a lot of different things, knowing when to stand up, but also when to kind of take a step back.
Honestly, you can absolutely compare the two. I mean, I think that is an incredibly, very intuitive example, and you're 100% spot on, and absolutely should compare the two, because I mean that is, and even as leaders, right? I think something my mom used to always tell me was, if you have the choice between being right or being kind, choose kind. And it's the exact same thing. If we can go. I'm dating myself now. You go all the way back to Roadhouse, and you always just be nice. And it's amazing how much, if you just remove your ego from it, like, what are you really solving? Like, yeah, maybe I could, take this guy out, but is that really what's best for myself, best for the situation? And look, in this day and age, you're probably going to get sued, and it's going to be all these other problems. And so when you take away just that very visceral physical altercation, and you think about corporations and business and showing up on time, or basically lying to somebody in business, or doing something, like the consequences of these things are monumental. And so just understanding how to de-escalate certain HR issues, or not escalate certain other things, or treat people with kindness and respect, and not always just be looking for a fight. That can be in the business world as well. So I think it's a very good example.
So Randall, for our audience that's listening, can you tell them, what does Phunware do? What is you all's concept? What is your product? Who is your target audience? Who is your target client? Again, I did some research. You are a mobile app concierge service, and I understand that really well from that degree. But let's dive a little bit deeper, because people right now are looking for that really new, innovative, new technology-driven brand to get behind, because and I know, and Leverett knows, the world is forever changing. I tell people all the time, change is external. You can't do anything about it. But transition is internal, and how you adapt to the change and how you put yourself in a position to succeed through change. So talk about Phunware, when it started, the concept, and now you are a NASDAQ publicly traded company. Give our audience a little bit more intel about what's Phunware and what do you all do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd love to, because I think we've been around long enough that we've seen, both change and transition, it feels like. So we got started back in 2009. Simple concept, let's help large brands transition off of web onto mobile. And back in 2009, this is pre-App Store. Nobody knew what really mobile was going to become. Less than 3% of internet content was being consumed on mobile. Fast forward to today, it's over 85%. The vast majority of that is native mobile applications. But back then, we were actually helping Apple think through, what would be the protocols to publish to the App Store. We were one of the only ones that were allowed to publish to the App Store. So we built the first NFL app. We built the first NASCAR app. We built all of Fox's mobile application portfolio, Sochi Olympics, WWE. We really cut our teeth in what we call the passion verticals: sports, media, entertainment. But we did it for the largest brands in the world that had millions of users, and it required a certain level of operational rigor and discipline to be able to scale that in a reliable fashion. Fast forward a few years, what we realized was, you can build a nice big book of business that way, but you're constantly chasing customers. You're a custom development shop. And so we thought, well, if we ever want to be public and we ever want to scale, how do we take everything that we know about mobile, and how do we design a platform that would let you license mobile software the same way you would license a CRM from Salesforce? So I don't have to go find some creative shop to build my mobile application. I'll just license software, get a mobile application, and be able to focus on my business. And so that's what we raised over $100 million as a private company. That's what we built. It's what we're deploying now. And the cool thing about that, when we were doing it, is, again, the name Phunware is a play on words from fun, but it's applications that exhibit game-like mechanics and behavior. So everything that we designed, whether it was for the NFL or whether it was for the Olympics, it was always about, how do I best engage somebody? So it's not just content delivery. And that's how most people think of mobile today. They think of content delivery. I'm going to let you stream Netflix. I'm going to give you a platform to fight with somebody about mask mandates or vaccines or politics. I'm just consuming content. I'm at the teach, just, gimme, gimme, gimme. We think about things entirely differently. It's how do I engage you? You have a mobile device in your pocket, or more likely in the palm of your hand. That's an anchor to a customer. And Marques, as basically being, such a luminary in sales, they're always looking for opportunities to sell better, to engage better. How do I get you when you're most likely willing to make a profitable decision? So we baked all of that into our platform. So fast forward to today, what we do is we license to hospitals, hotels, politicians, a lot of like smart workplace stuff. And really what we're doing, and you hit the nail on the head, is turning your mobile device into a mobile concierge. So that platform is not just about content delivery. It's about getting you the right information at the right time, in the right place, on the right screen, in order for you to either make a profitable decision or do something that delights your customers. And so we're just launching at Atlantis in the Bahamas. They had a problem with people just getting lost on the island. Atlantis is an entire island in the Bahamas. There's so many opportunities to discover restaurants and events and venues and scheduling, but you're always having to look for an employee to tell you what to do or where to go. And a lot of people get lost and miss out on certain things. And so we've given them an immersive, digital, basically a map with an ability to discover anything on there. And then next, what we'll do is give you digital keys. So use your phone to unlock, your hotel room so you can skip registration and check-in. You can use your phone to order food or drink from anywhere on the island, and they'll just bring it to you no matter where you are. So we do a lot of work with like casinos as well. And so the goal is always to tech enable a user journey so that you have everything that you need, at your fingertips, and really make sure that you have, the best possible experience at any one smart venue. And so ideal customers are corporations looking to trick out smart office space, hotels looking to create a smart hospitality solution, and also healthcare, looking to tech enable the entire continuum of care. And that'll be table stakes going forward. Everybody talks about the metaverse, and it's sad. We've been talking about flying cars for 30 years, and there's a reason, that we don't have them. And form factor is huge. People don't really fully appreciate how people live their lives. We were never ready for flying cars. We'll probably never be ready for flying cars. You'll see more like a rail system or automated driving cars on the ground. Form factor is key. Google Glass came out. Nobody wanted to wear them. It's creepy. If you're wearing sunglasses and we're talking, are you recording me? There's a huge social issue that will keep us from a lot of the things that we think are going to be coming. Metaverse, nobody wants to be walking around with big, plastic, or, sitting around their house all day with these big plastic goggles slapped to their face. It's cute and it's niche. But I think we're years from that ever even becoming a reality. So long before we see Ready Player One become a reality, we'll see, Free Guy or Minority Report become a reality. So that's what Phunware is all about. It's tech enabling the real world. I don't want to put you in a virtual world. I want to make your real world experiences better.
I love how you said make your real world experience better, because basically you're taking what's tangible, visible, and you're making it very easily accessible through your phone, through the app. Before I turn on to Leverett, one quick question. You said you guys raised over $100 million. A lot of our audience is entrepreneurs, people who are growing a business. We also have a good amount of people, Randall, who are just starting a business and they're doing well and they're trying to progress, and they're maybe thinking, do I want to get into investment rounds, seed funding? What would you say to somebody that has a business that's growing? They're thinking about getting into seed round investments to kind of grow the business and scale, but they're not sure of the pros and cons of it. And then could you inform people how difficult it really is to go out and raise capital? People think, wow, Randall and Phunware raised $100 million. Man, that's kind of just be easy peasy, man. Randall just got to give the gab. He can invite Randall with a checkbook and say, hey, go, Randall, you want $100 million? Right on the table, brother. Let's get it going. And you and I both know that's not how it goes. So enlighten our audience to, if they're thinking about it, what should they do, the pros and cons, and then really enlighten our audience on how hard it is to raise capital.
Yeah, you said a lot of very important and critical things even in the question, and that gift of gab and like your personality, it jumps out. People want to be in business with people they like, and so a large part of raising money and before Phunware, and I kind of bookend Phunware. I helped with the first $1.5 million to start Phunware, and then I actually became fully operational, putting several million dollars into it right before we went public. But in that middle period, about a decade, I only did healthcare venture capital. So I had my own fund, and we invested in healthcare technology startups, and so I know this space well, and I've seen it from both sides, the entrepreneurial side and from the investor side. And I'll tell you, it's relationships. You have to put yourself out there. You have to build those relationships. But going back to that quote, you also have to commit. I remember having one pitch with these two guys that came in, Wall Street traders, just really nice suits, really wealthy, talked the entire pitch about how connected they were. And I just asked a simple question, like, all right, how much are you guys putting into the round? You're asking me for my money, how much are you putting in? And they're like, well, no, we're not putting anything in. That's why we're here. We're here for you. And I'm like, hey, look, no offense at all. I get it. Like, if you can play with the house's money, absolutely you should try. But that tells me a little something about you. The very next pitch was this woman who was a teacher, and she had maxed out her credit cards. She had refinanced her house, and she had just taken down her parents' like 401k in order to invest in her business. And I always talk to people about what's your walkaway factor. So if I'm talking to you as an entrepreneur, yes, I want to hear your business and I want to know what the innovation is. But I would say probably more than 50% of it is you, because the business is going to change. Something's going to, the market's going to change. You're going to miss something. You're going to need to pivot. So I need to know about you. What's your walkaway factor? How easy is it for you to just like leave me holding the bag? I put $1 million into your company. You don't put anything. It doesn't work out. You just go get another job at, Goldman or something, and you're out. Like, what do you care? But if you got your parents' money in the deal, if you got your own retirement fund into the deal, you'll run through walls to be successful. So I always tell entrepreneurs, you've got to understand somebody is evaluating your commitment to what you're doing long before they're going to give you any money. And it's not just, look at this new shiny thing I built, and I'm going to be like, oh my God, that's the next Uber. I was getting, hundreds of pitches a month. And so every entrepreneur thinks their thing is the best thing since sliced bread. And, you're one of 100 that I've seen, and everybody says the same thing. I need to see that X factor, that I am all in. And sometimes there's a couple of things that like investors will use against you. If you've been successful before, sometimes that's not a great thing. Getting it right once is hard enough. Getting it right twice is really hard. So yes, I like the experience from an entrepreneur who's had a big win before, but you also, again, you don't have to win again. You've already got, a nice house and a lot of money banked. And so now you're doing it again. Are you going to be as hungry as you were the first time around? And so there's a lot of, you're going to have to cast a wide net. You're going to have to get comfortable being told no. You got to get to work building those relationships. You just can't wait until you need the money. I was building relationships years out from before I ever asked for money, because as a VC, we have to ask for money and then put that into a fund and then deploy that money. So talk about, a hard sell. At least with a company, you're selling a product. I'm just selling myself. I'm saying, hey, give me money, and then I'm going to go give it to somebody else, and hopefully we're all going to make some money along the way. So that's all relationship based. And so I think a lot of people, they're uncomfortable asking for money. They're uncomfortable putting themselves out there. So they just got to get started. You got to commit, then you got to figure it out. And you got to really not only commit the action of networking and relationship building, but you have to commit your own resources. And if you got 1 foot in, 1 foot out, that's a huge red flag for me. Doctors always do that. People always think, oh, cool, this doctor's building this new product and they're going to be great. And I'm always like, are you still practicing? They're like, well, yeah, of course. I'm helping using that to fund them. No, I'm good. You're straddling two worlds. You don't know if you want to keep working in the OR or you want to be an entrepreneur. I need you to figure it out. I need you to pick. But if you quit your job, actually doing surgery, and you're all in on this company, that tells me something about your commitment.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and, also, Randall, you mentioned something earlier about how, mobile content wasn't what it is today when you first got into your line of work. And, obviously, people to some degree anticipated things going more in the direction of people relying on, mobile apps to get things done. But, I think maybe to some degree, people couldn't have anticipated just the degree to which mobile content kind of dominates the world. And also part of why people are so reliant on technology, to be honest, is because of COVID. I mean, my dad is a college professor. He's teaching in person right now, but for a while he was doing all his classes on Zoom. So COVID, I think, has kind of sped things up. But regardless, though, I mean, with all the different apps and, people, becoming celebrities through, social media and whatever, I mean, it dominates the world. But I'm curious about, when you first got into your line of work, people talk about how timing is everything in business. Did you anticipate mobile content going in the direction that it's gone, or were you more kind of just thinking, okay, we'll see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, in that case, and it's always we always say it's better to be lucky than good, and I always say, why can't you be both? But I would say, that we bet the farm on that, and we said, look, this is going to be some of the most valuable real estate on the planet, because it's always going to be connected to a human, always connected to a network. And so it'll be a conduit for brands to engage. And so we knew kind of where the puck was headed. But I think, to your point, sometimes it's bad to be too early. You don't want to be too early. You don't want to be too late. People always talk about first mover advantage. That's just an ignorant thing people say when they don't really know what they're talking about. MySpace had, not even Friendster had, my first mover advantage. MySpace had second mover advantage. Facebook just got it right. And so, there's a lot to be said for, understanding your market. But, probably the best adage I always like to say is, Steve Jobs talks about this, I think in the Stanford commencement speech or graduation speech or whatever, where he's talking about surfing. And he's like, a surfer would tire themselves out if you just swam all over the ocean looking for that perfect wave. You have to study the topography, you have to understand the weather, and then you go find where you think that perfect wave is going to be. And sometimes you got to wait, and you got to be patient, and you got to wait for that wave to catch you. And so the key in doing that is really loving what you do and understanding that, hey, I'm committing to this, and I'm committing to this line, and I'm committing to this area, and I'm going to wait for the wave to catch me. Now, you don't want to wait forever if you get it wrong. People always talk about if you fail, that's fine, but fail fast. But leading into that, you really got to understand, where are you thinking about where the market's headed, and what are you thinking about what pain points you can solve with your technology? And I think that's where, it's okay to have a non-consensus thought. Another book I always recommend is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. And he always talks about that, about how to, if you're interviewing somebody, you're talking to somebody, ask them, what is their one non-consensus thought? Like, what do you think that nobody else thinks? And I'm probably, it's probably not a good thing, but I have a lot of non-consensus thoughts. And then one of those is like this whole concept of the metaverse. I want to tech enable the real world. And I think that's the next, transition, as Marques put it very aptly. We helped large companies transition from web to mobile. Now we'll help companies understand that having just a mobile application is no longer good enough. What are you doing with that mobile application? And what that is called is digital transformation. So digital transformation is this concept of taking all the technology in the real world and using it to inform real world experiences. And so we're going to give people that software layer, and we're actually blockchain enable it as well. But software and crypto that will allow you to create moments of contextual engagement. So and it's little things, like people don't even think about it. Like, think about the last time you showed up at a big office building and you're thinking like, all right, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to park. Like, I'm here 30 minutes early. Is there a coffee shop on the first floor that I can maybe grab a cup of coffee? Like, there's all these moments of uncertainty and ambiguity that you could easily figure out. Your phone knows, you just don't know. And I don't want to go into my phone and say, hey, Siri, please help me out, because I don't know what I'm looking for sometimes. I want it to be like, hey, Randall, here, you're 30 minutes early. Why don't you grab a cup of coffee? Or make sure you park here. Or this parking garage is actually closed because they're doing repairs. Make sure you go around. Or I show up in Vegas, like, don't park here. That's the wrong tower. You want to park here, and don't get in this line because that's the ride sharing line and you're going to be sitting in that line forever. You want to go around and do this way and approach from this direction. There's all these opportunities for a mobile device to air traffic control your life to make your experiences more seamless and more delightful. And that's what our software was designed to do.
Well, and you mentioned parking. I mean, I live in the Boston area. Parking is brutal here, as it is in most major cities. You know, if I had an app on my phone that was helping me make smarter parking decisions, I would have saved a lot of money in tickets. You know, the city of Boston's made a lot of money off me. So
You're absolutely right. Every time somebody talks about parking, it's something, going back to kind of motivation and leadership and just kind of, that entrepreneurial spirit. It's funny because we've become if you look on social media, we're very like negatively minded, people. And I think, what else did I learn from being in the military and being an entrepreneur and being an investor is being positive. And so I always talk, parking is an adage they use a lot. When you're looking for a parking space, do you look for cars or do you look for empty spaces? You look for empty spaces. Otherwise, you'd be driving around forever if all you did was look for cars. But, then we face our life constantly looking for cars. We're constantly looking for, we're talking about negative stuff. We're negative about ourselves. We're negative about our opportunities. And so you got to look for the white spaces and look for where to park things, look for where to go, look for the opportunities. And that's what we've really tried to do with our company is find where's the puck headed, and really skate in that direction and find those opportunities for where those transitions are going to, begin to happen.
Randall, how can people get in touch with you, find out more about Phunware, what's you all's website, and how can people just connect with you and have a discussion about Phunware or all things you all are doing?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I'm very easy to find. Phunware is with actually a PH, so PHUNWARE, so phunware.com. We have a couple, people that are interested in cryptocurrency. I would encourage them to reach out and look into that. So if you go to like buy.funtoken.com, you can see one of our native cryptocurrencies is FunToken. We also have another one called FunCoin. So we have two different digital assets, but funtoken.com, funcoin.com, funware.com. You can download FunWallet on iOS and Android and just check out more about FunWallet at funwallet.com. And then finding me is easy. It's Randall Crowder on pretty much all platforms. So whether it's IG, LinkedIn, the only one I don't have, which I have, I just can't think of what my password is Twitter. So it's Crowder Official for Twitter, even though I also own Randall Crowder. I just can't log in for some reason. So always write down your passwords and make sure you know those. That's another lesson learned. But other than that, I'm super easy to find. Especially LinkedIn's probably easiest. Just Randall Crowder.
Love it. Yeah, my business partner always tells me to write down, username and password. I have so many different things to sign into. If I don't have it on my phone, I'm going to forget it. So, Randall, phenomenal interview, fantastic audience. My final thought, final comment: be all in whatever you do. Don't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Don't be 50% in, 50% out. People like Randall, who are sharp, savvy investors, they built big businesses, they've been around a lot of high net worth individuals. People who go all in are the ones they want to work with. So learn how to have the mindset to be fully invested, fully engaged, fully immersed in whatever you're doing. This will shine the light that people know you are the person they need to talk to, need to connect with to get business done and help them achieve their goals. Randall, excellent job. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow. And Lever, close us out.
All right. So once again, thank you to our guest, Randall Crowder, for joining us. This is Lever Ball alongside my co-host, Marcus Ogden. You've been listening to the Lev Marques Show.